What if the conversations we've been told to avoid are the ones we need the most? What if we have become so afraid of offending people that we've stopped asking better questions?
Because growth doesn't come from staying comfortable. It comes from questioning assumptions, challenging ideas, and being willing to hear perspectives that aren't your own.
Some conversations will make you uncomfortable. Some will challenge what you believe. Some might even change your mind.
Listen, we're not here to tell you what to think. We're here to ask better questions, to explore different perspectives, and to have the conversations most people avoid.
No scripts, no echo chambers, no sugarcoating. Just honest conversations about leadership, relationships, business, health, money, culture, and what it really means to live well in a complicated world.
And hey, you don't have to agree with everything you hear, but if every episode leaves you thinking long after it's over, we've done our job.
You're listening to Let's Not Sugarcoat It. Let's get into it. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Not Sugarcoat It. We've all been told that if you have anxiety, trauma, or relationship conflict, you just need to talk it out. But what if endlessly rehashing your story in a therapist's office is actually trapping you in your head and keeping your nervous system stuck in fight or flight? Today we are joined by Shyloe Fayad. Shyloe is a Somatic Experiencing Practitioner using Dr. Peter Levine's body-based trauma model, a school counselor, and an expert in neurodivergency. But most importantly, she lives this work every single day as a neurodivergent individual raising 4 neurodivergent kids. Today, we're cutting through the intellectual fluff. We're asking why traditional talk therapy fails neurodivergent brains, how stored trauma actually manifests in our bodies and marriages, and how to get out of your mind and regulate your nervous system when life goes chaotic. Shyloe, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Bella. I really appreciate being invited on your show.
Yeah, this kind of has been the trend of season 4 is talking about healing and trauma and relationships because there's so much going on in this world and there's so much confusion, so many mixed messages. Do this, take that, don't do this, don't do that. It's quite easy to get stuck in a loop and do these things over and over and over again without actually getting any results. So your story is incredibly personal. You lived with depression for nearly 20 years. What finally shifted for you?
That is such a good question because I worked really hard in those 20 years to figure out what was going to work. I did a lot of different healing modalities and I did a lot of talk therapy as well as attended 12-step groups because I grew up in a home affected by addiction. But I would say one of the biggest shifts came when I had a specific mentor who was extremely present and was able to co-regulate with me. And that's not what we called it at the time because I didn't know much about somatic experiencing and co-regulation was not a word being used at that point because that was about almost 15 years ago now, I guess about 15 years ago now. And so just the act of having another human being who could sit with me in challenging emotions, whatever came up in my body, and just maintain a solid, grounded presence really created a huge at that point. That was around my 30s.
Yeah. So can you explain a little bit about somatic work? Because there's so many modalities. And
it's true.
When we sit around and we look on the internet and everybody's like, go to counseling, go to see a therapist. It's all about talking it out. But like you said, it didn't work just talking it out. What's specifically somatic work?
Okay, so that's a very good question because you're right. There is stuff all over the internet and people are using that term kind of willy-nilly, I would say. The type of training I took was through the Somatic Experiencing Institute in the United States, which was started by Peter Levine, who is basically the founder of that modality. And somatic experiencing works with the body, and this modality works in particular with the nervous system. So one of the reasons I sought out this particular healing modality is because even though I had done all that work in my 20s and 30s, I found myself burning out at the end of my 40s. And so I thought to myself, I've done so much talk therapy already, and I had really good success with having a mentor who could just sit with me and be there, in a really present way. I decided I'm going to look for somebody who can do trauma intervention, and I found a counselor who could do somatic therapy. And because it was so effective with me, I chose to do the training to be able to offer it to clients as well. A piece of this training is one of the forerunners is Stephen Porges, who has a vagal theory where he works with the vagus nerve as well. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but I'm trying to give you like a little glimpse into that world.
Yeah. So explain to the listeners. So talk therapy, we sit and we talk. When we do somatic therapy, what is your role? Like, how do you hold space for the individual?
Great question. Great question. So I learned that as a client at first, which was super helpful in my training. And what it looked like for me, and it can be different for others, but I would come into the office and I would say to my therapist, I don't really want to talk today. And she's like, oh, do you want to stay here? Or do you want to lay on the table? Because she had a massage table. I'm like, I want to lay down because I was really burnt out at that point. And all she would ask me is, what are you noticing in your body? And so I would just lay there. I'd be like, there's so much tightness in my chest. She's like, is it okay if you just hang out there? Is it okay if you just feel what it feels like? And you can let me know if anything changes or if it ramps up or if it gets less, but just hang out with that sensation. Now, at that point in my life, sometimes I really could hang out with the sensation. At other points, it would feel too overwhelming and I couldn't even stay with that feeling. So then the therapist would ask me to just go to the edges of the feeling and just feel what the edges felt like. And so each time was different. Sometimes I could describe it as a constriction. Sometimes I could describe it as like the edges were wobbly. I could describe the color, maybe the texture of it. And oftentimes, if I could hang out with it, it would shift a bit on its own. Sometimes there was like a bit of a ramping up of the sensation and then a natural decline. And so the nervous system itself is working through this activation and like a deactivation of the sensation. The whole idea around somatic experiencing is to allow the body to complete the protective response. Because when you have a trauma, your body usually has a response it wants to do, but oftentimes we aren't able to do that response. So for example, you're in a car accident and your body's thrown forward, whereas if you had enough time, you would stopped it, you would have protected yourself. So there's ways to work through that actual instinctual response, like imagining and feeling the sensation. Sometimes we have clients do the movement really slow so that we don't reactivate the system. There's a few different ways to allow the body to move that sensation through and then back down again. Does that make any sense, Bella?
Yeah. No, yeah, I get it. So really, you're reprogramming the brain or allowing it to process the emotions. Is that what I'm hearing? Versus
yes,
holding it and
system.
storing. Yeah.
It's not even the brain necessarily. It's your nervous system, because your nervous system really kind of runs the whole show in here. And so you're allowing the nervous to access that sensations associated with that experience, and then allow it to complete itself. Whereas oftentimes we are arrested, like that sensation, that natural cycle is stopped, and that holds a bunch of life energy, and we become stuck in that. That's why people tell their trauma story over and over and over and over again. They want to get it out. They think by getting it out, they're going to get over it. Oftentimes, that's just like a loop. It's almost like an addiction because they get a bit of a dopamine hit over talking about this trauma. So what we're doing is you don't even have to talk about your trauma necessarily. You're talking about what the sensations are in your body. Now, that can be hard for some people to access. There's people who come into my office who don't really feel anything. So then you have to start baby steps. So I keep, for example, different fidget toys in my office. And one of the things you can do is ask them to play with some of them, and then ask them, well, which one do you like better? And people usually know right away, oh yeah, I really like this one. then you try to ask them to explain, like, how do you know in your system what's different when you use this one as opposed to this one, to try to get them to become more sensitive to what's going on.
Yeah, just
Mhm.
breaking down those walls. And we do tend to protect ourselves. And I remember when I was going through event and I was telling my girlfriends, I don't have a heartbeat. I feel nothing. I'm actually numb. So getting back into my body, doing I did a mushroom journey that really opened up a little bit of what I needed to work on, what I was suppressing. A lot more came out of it.
For sure.
Besides just that one event, but that one event was the catalyst for me to actually start processing a lifelong journey that we actually do not process as we're living, and we're just reacting, right? There's an event, we react to it, we move on. But we don't take a conscious, I guess, note of what that event actually has done to our bodies, our nervous system, even a move. To me, let's say moving from one country to another, from one home to another, isn't as big of a deal as it may be to somebody else. So they will process that part of their life completely different than what I would process. And when they're storing, we're reacting, right? Let's say we're moving to another city and there's the stress, and then we move on and it's the next thing and the next thing, and everything kind of gets stuck within your body.
Absolutely.
And then we don't move through it because then the next piece comes in. So
yes.
allowing that to move through your body is so important, because then you release and you can regulate your nervous system.
Yeah. And I mean, people can practice some of these strategies at home on their own. That can be helpful, but it's really important to have somebody who has been trained in a specific somatic modality to kind of guide you through the process and to hold space for you. There's some people who have never really had a calm nervous system. And so then to be around another human being who has a calm nervous system, that can help regulate their nervous system. That's why pets are so handy for people. Pets calm other people because their nervous system oftentimes is calmer than the human's nervous system.
Cats definitely calm me. The dog is more of an energy giver, energetically. But it's true. When we walk into a room, we pick up, we're energetic beings. And when we walk into a room, we can sense, if we tune into really our body, we can sense, is this good energy? Is this a good vibe? Or is it's not a good vibe, right? So it is important to have somebody that, like you said, has a calm nervous system when you're in a state of disarray.
Fight or flight, or
So you're a certified somatic experiencing practitioner, a counselor, but you also say neurodivergent and raising 4 neurodivergent kids. What is the biggest lie mainstream psychology tells parents about how to handle emotional meltdowns at home?
This is a tough one. I mean, my kids are actually grown up now. So I raised 4. They're adults now. So the biggest lie that I guess lots of times, standard counseling or standard parenting advice makes supporting kids with emotional regulation difficulties makes it sound like it's going to be easy. If you do A, B, C, then the result is going to be D. So just follow these steps and it'll solve it for you. My personal experience has been that each kid is different, and working in a school as a school counselor is that those kids are different, like one from the other. And some of the most important things about emotional regulation, and I'm not sure how this is going to come off, is that parents do the work around their own emotional regulation. Because kids who come into my office who are dysregulated often come from families where there's a lot of dysregulation. The other thing around emotional regulation is helping kids learn boundaries. So what I've seen, and I started parenting in 1990, and my youngest is now 22. So I had my kids are spread far apart. So I've seen a lot of changes in the parenting advice over the years. And we did have a big period where it was all about acknowledging kids' feelings, like really get in there, really support them in their feelings. And that is good to a certain extent. And I really agree with that. And we really need to teach kids boundaries around those feelings, especially neurodivergent kids. I have parents who get assaulted by their kids, who are scared to go into their living room because the kid's in there and they don't want them in there. It starts when they're really young, setting boundaries, like healthy emotional boundaries within the relationship, parent to child and child to child.
Yeah, I can totally. Really, I'm in this phase right now. My girls are 13. I have twin girls. And I'm going through perimenopause. So we're in a stage of, yeah, the hormones are rising and some are falling. And it's just the nervous system on both ends are dysregulated. We have triggers.
Absolutely.
Because we're coming into a phase in our lives that we don't know what actually is going on. Why are we so edgy? How do I not react to my children? Why am I reacting to them? Is it an actual trigger from, the past, or is it because my estrogen is super low or something? Like what? It's really hard, the stage to have to be parenting teenagers as you're also going through.
It is so difficult.
Life changes. So gentle parenting somehow is not, it works for 30 seconds and then it doesn't. Because we're not setting the proper boundaries with the children. There needs to be discipline. There needs to be structure. There still needs to be, I'm listening to you yell at me. What is going, like at some point you don't yell at your mom or your dad or somebody, right? So
agreed. Yeah.
How would you bring, somatic work into a family per se, right? Let's say we needed to have us regulated. How would you work and how would you or coach or train or, give advice to a mom who's dysregulated? Sometimes she knows why, sometimes she doesn't.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Well, first of all, I just want to make sure people know I'm not an expert. I only know a certain amount of stuff. I don't consider and I'm always learning. So I'm going to say that my way might not be the way of every other person who does this. I don't know if I shouldn't say I'm an expert, but I just never want to come off as if I know everything, if that makes sense. So for me, the most important thing working with families is that each family member gets to be worked with individually, and then the family's worked with as a group. Lots of times kids are like the canary in the coal mine, where they're signaling challenges between the partners. So that really needs to be looked at before any work can really be done moving forward. The important thing is for each person too, during that experience, is to learn their own ways to regulate their emotions. And so dad, mom, and kids are able to develop strategies to regulate themselves and be committed to that. So the role of the parents is to remind kids of what they've learned and what they've committed to, because you guys are like a microcosm. You're kind of responsible to each other, and there's conditions to being in that microcosm. So kids can't just like bail on the idea of regulating their emotions and depending on their parents. And that's only from about the age you're talking about your own daughters, right? I'm not talking about 5-year-olds. They really need the support from their parents. The other thing that I find is really important for families that are struggling, which is tough, is spending time together, all the family members together, doing things that's enjoyable for the family members, because oftentimes when family members are together, there's a lot of explosions. So we need to have experiences with the nervous system where you're doing things that are fun. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Thing. We're doing the fun things and it's never enough, right? So, but I think that's a lot of internal work
Part of teenagehood.
Yeah. And as women, we also need to, remember that they're going to be flying out of our nest. We're pushing them to be great human beings, hopefully, and not taking the things so personally, because I do find a lot of
Moms, we do. I know I took lots of things personally for my kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just knowing that they will come back. We need to give them a bit of space, and then they will come back.
Yeah. And including their friends too, I guess. I mean, the one thing we had in our home was that Friday nights, and this was every second Friday, was family time. And we'd have a supper together. We'd, one of the kids would pick a different movie each second week or whatever. And we have special candies we didn't have any other time. We didn't have a TV in our house at the time because I wanted us to be able to be around each other. And it was sort of before the time of a bunch of technology. But that was just like a routine we had. Whether the kids liked it or not, we connected. I prioritized connection. And there's a really great book by Gabor Mate and Gordon Neufeld called Hold On to Your Kids. And that was a book that really helped me in terms of parenting and staying connected to my teens. So
yeah, no, we try to do a lot of those types of things, but sometimes
don't get me started on the perimenopause.
Oh my gosh,
menopause while you're parenting. Are you kidding me? I stopped making suppers at one point. My youngest was 14 and I'm like, we're done here. I don't think I can cook supper more than 2 or 3 times a week because I'm so exhausted. Forget it.
Yeah. I'm just exhausted about the complaints. This again? Oh my gosh, it's like, listen, Linda, honey, I literally just made this dinner for you. You are so capable, and that it goes, you're so capable of doing this all on your own. I'm not doing this. And then I go on a mini strike. Figure yourself out. Peace out. Mama out.
Good for you, Mama. Mini strike all the way. I fully support that.
Right?
Fully.
Yeah.
I mean, 13 years old is old enough for them to make a meal.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it too is nowadays, at least in my circle of friends, we don't have very many chores, I'd say. In the house, responsibilities, I grew up quite differently. I was a refugee from Poland during communism into Austria. We lived in a hotel room for a year, then to another farm. And my parents worked their butts off, and I was alone. I was only child as well. So I had to figure myself out. I had to do the things that most 8-year-olds didn't have to do, right?
Yeah.
So I feel with all the luxuries that we are experiencing, because we are, whoever's living in Canada, North America, we're all privileged because we have running water, we have this, we have that. In other countries, we don't. Right? And we do tend to take certain things for granted. And especially our kids are taking a lot of things for granted.
It's true. And it's never too late to start chores. My kids had chores. I was a single parent for a long time. And we just all did chores on Sunday mornings or Friday evenings. I don't remember, or Saturday mornings, but everybody had chores. Like, I guess there was another book I read called The Family Values Guide. And I can't remember if it was in there or it was just a conversation I had with somebody around the time I was reading that book, but how chores help kids feel like they're really part of the family.
Yeah.
Like, because they have a responsibility and we are counting on them to get that done. Yeah.
And we were trying. We still get the eye rolls and the whines and oh my gosh, right?
For you,
and then you get the trigger, right? Because then I say, well, how is this fair if I'm cooking supper and you're being served, and now I also have to clean after you guys.
Yeah.
Clean your, right? So, I mean, there is work to be done for sure on all fronts.
Yeah.
Right? But we do,
Bella, if that's a trigger for you, like one of the things you could do in that moment is just really notice what's happening in your system and just sit with it for a bit while you're getting triggered, because oftentimes our triggers have to do with what's happening in the moment, but also have to do with stuff that's happening before that hasn't really completed. So maybe your trigger is associated with your kids giving eye rolls, but also maybe it's associated with the fact that you had to do that stuff, that you were a refugee, you were by yourself. And so to kind of feel into some of that and just allow your system to feel sort of maybe the grief and sadness of having that heavy responsibility. Once you clear that away, then your connection with your child is more clear and like distinct from that. And the trigger might be like less bothersome.
Yeah.
It's just an idea.
Yeah, definitely. I've been noticing since the perimenopause, my triggers are so different than, and as they age too, so different than what they used to be. Before it was relationship based. I mean, don't get me wrong, been together for 21 years. Not all of it has been roses and peaches. Or whatever the saying is.
Yes.
So those triggers still come up once in a while. But now we have this new phase as we're transitioning and our kids are transitioning. And, it's like a mini mushroom cloud sometimes in this house, right? Because there's so many emotions.
And I think too, moms really hold the whole show together. And with all that estrogen and oxytocin we have early on, we're like willing to do all these things, willing to let these things slide, willing to like pamper our kids to a certain extent. And then when that estrogen starts to plummet, we're like, wait a minute, we've kind of been taken advantage of.
Yeah.
I've kind of been doing too much stuff. Like I've been overworking myself. That's why I'm so tired now. And so then to backtrack into some of that, and for the kids, it's a bit of a shock. They're like, well, why don't we still get to do X, Y, Z? Why won't mom do A, B, C? My kids complained about that all the time. But it's just like, I got to a point where I was like, wait a minute. Like, I've been getting taken advantage of, kind of. I'm done with this. And it's not that it doesn't trigger me or I don't get like irritated with them, but I actually feel more solid in my conviction that I'm a human being. I'm not just a mom. And they can't really treat me like that.
That's been my thing, the messaging to the family. I am not just your driver. I'm not just your cook, your provider, the bank machine. I'm not those things. I'm also, and I think there was a bit of a shift. When I said, I'm also a human being, I said, I also have feelings. Because I feel like they forget that we also have feelings when you, it's not just about you. Because kids are egocentric. Everything around revolves around them because that's how they survive from the beginning. But at some point, you have to let them know that I also get hurt. When you do this, this is how it makes me feel. I question, do you even love me? I've said that. And it was a big eye-opener. Or do you see me just as a burden when you want me away, or someone to feed you and drive your friends and give you money? Right? So having those
are very healthy conversations to be having with your kids, especially at that age. They're going to learn from you, right? They watch you, you're setting boundaries, you're basically calling in your power, then they'll be able to do the same thing, right?
Yeah. So now, do you work mostly with women or do you do men as well?
I do men, yeah. Like I work with men, but mostly women contact me. Yeah.
Do you feel like there should be more of that? Because men tend to disassociate. So where do these
be more men in therapy?
Where do these feelings, where do these, the storage of all those emotions go? Right? So let's talk a bit about like relationships.
Okay.
Right? The masculine, the feminine. How do you regulate the nervous system for men versus women? Because I feel they're different.
I guess in some ways I'm oblivious to that. The one thing I've noticed about working with men is they're very straightforward. So if you suggest something, like if they come to you for therapy and you suggest something or you're working through something, they're usually pretty open about doing it. If they've showed up to your session individually on their own, it's been their own idea. That's been my experience. Of course, a lot of them are very shut down, right? So they do it to the capacity they can do it, right? They're more vacated, meaning the lights are all on, but no one's home really. Women are more layered and a little more complicated, but I shouldn't use the word complicated, actually, because people call us, I don't know, maybe we could just say beautiful. Okay. So layered and complicated. So I don't know, I guess it's a hard question to answer because when it comes down to the nervous system and you're doing sensation work, to me, it's kind of all the same, but I can't say. I probably have not worked with enough men to make a to make a generalization around that. Just trying to think, because I would say I worked with more men when I did life coaching than I do when I done nervous system work. Because the men I've done nervous system work with, it's been the same, in terms of the steps of how to access the nervous system and notice sensation stuff, but less detailed maybe when they talk about what's happened for them, less of a capacity to access the actual sensation than possibly the women I've seen. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like maybe with women, we are emotional creatures,
Mm-hmm.
which is how we process the hormones, everything, whether we cry, we lean into the discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
Men tend to go inward and disassociate. So,
it's true.
You know, with your work, I always question that. How do we get them to tune into those deeper layers versus just the surface layers?
I think the big key is safety, is feeling safe to go there. And so as a practitioner, really getting to know that individual, connecting with them and creating a safe space. In a relationship, probably the same thing. Yeah, it's just really safety for men. And men that show up for somatic experiencing, because it's already kind of a different modality than talk therapy, they're more willing to do that kind of work. Like they're more open to it. That's why they've shown up a lot of times. Or it's like a last ditch attempt at trying to find some relief. But I do think it's about safety.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's within any relationship too. If you create a safe space,
and I mean, the patriarchy did a number on men too, right? That's why they're like that they can't really talk about their feelings, or they're afraid of change, kind of, and really need to uphold that masculine, that kind of like shut down masculine, because that's what they've been taught for so many years. So it's about undoing that as well.
Yeah, I think it's in their nature. Yes, I believe that they have been conditioned to be strong, the provider, and not to show the emotions, you know. Boys don't cry. Don't be a girl when you cry, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But I think the way that maybe this masculinity is being portrayed as toxic masculinity, it's kind of going the opposite, where we're expecting them to be these emotional creatures. But I think that innately they are not. Men and women are like, yes, they can step into that energy and be softer and nurturing, which we need them to be, but also they need to be men. And they're masculine.
This is always a hard conversation to have because of all the controversy around gender and all that stuff nowadays, right? But I mean, from what I understand, and I didn't do a lot of reading, like there are fundamental differences in the female and male brain. From what I understand, there's been many, many books, many scientific studies done on this, right? And even when my babies were born, I had 2 boys and 2 girls. I don't know if I'm yelling. Sometimes I feel like I'm yelling on your podcast because I have these headphones on. When these babies were born, and I was surprised, okay? I had a baby boy first, didn't know anything different, had a baby girl and realized her nervous system was way more developed. Like she was already more mature at birth than she was as a baby boy. Had a baby boy and I was like, wait a second. Like there's actually a significant difference in terms of their nervous system and their maturity from birth. So I hear what you're saying in terms of like there are differences. And I mean, toxic masculinity is a whole other conversation that I don't really like. We could have a podcast just on that idea, but it's the expectations of, the different sexes, and also like the way certain sexes have been pigeonholed into specific roles. But from what I understand from my own kids, from working in schools, from books, there are differences between the female and male brain, and there's differences between the ways we express ourselves. And so in terms of therapy, I can't say I have enough experience with males to be able to fully describe, how different it is to work with them, except in life coaching. I noticed in life coaching, in a lot of ways, it was easier to work with them because they were just going to do it. They just kind of went forward, whereas women are more like this, which was wonderful too. I love it. I actually love that.
It's because we're more complex. And they can do the task. I know this is a eternal debate with my husband because he says, I cannot multitask. I'm like, oh, yes, I can. You may not be able to multitask, because men are wired to think one task,
Right.
we complete, we move to the next task.
Right.
But because with women, we'll start doing the task, but then in the background, this is running, that's running. I have to do this, I have to do that. So you do get distracted. You do multiple things, and it takes us maybe longer because we're not focusing on that one specific task. But because there's a lot more that women have put on themselves right now, or has been with this. You know, I feel like we've done this to ourselves in this unhealthy way where we're, you know, running around going, strong, independent women, we don't need anybody. We can do all the things. Sure, we can. I'm 100% with that. But do we want to? That is the question. In a partnership.
That's the other question. Does it break us?
Yeah.
To try to do all those things?
And it had, like, when you're looking out there now, women are a lot more stressed, a lot more burnout. We have so much on our plates because we keep adding to that. Not men's plates, but we are taking that on.
Nothing's been added to men's plates, that's for sure.
Right? This is not about bashing, but it's about that conversation. Why are we in a relationship then if we are expected to do everything on our own? Right? And then the resentment grows. And then our emotions grow. Our nervous system is dysregulated. We're experiencing way more burnout. And the question is why? Because we're flooded with this, I don't need no one. I can do it all. Because we're asked to be in our masculine, which that's not our innate nature. So energetically, we should be able to switch in and out of our masculine and feminine, but women need to be more in their feminine energy, which is very strong and powerful. So let me just put that caveat in. We are like water. Water is a feminine energy. And you just think about water, how soft it can be, how warm, how it can hold you when you're floating. But man, when that tsunami hits, there's nothing standing in its way. So we are strong, powerful beings in our feminine just as much as in our masculine. And our masculine energy, we're in our doing. So doing all the things. When we're in our feminine, we're in our being. And that's why we're not being long enough.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bit I've thought about for a long time. There was a time in my life where I really focused on the feminine and masculine, thought about, you know, how is it that I got myself in this place where, you know, I'm working all the time, I'm raising my kids, I'm in charge of doing all these things. Like, I mean, I stayed home with my kids actually when they were little. And in fact, I worked from home. When I was a single mom, I worked from home online so I could stay home with my kids and be like a stay-at-home mom. So I could run them, their band instruments if they forgot them. So I could take them lunch, so I could volunteer at the school. I did all these things. And I found myself extremely exhausted. And I don't know about the masculine-feminine debate. I'm not sure about that. But I think a lot of women resorted to doing everything, probably because of, first of all, a lot of married women are holding everything too, right? The emotional labor, they're doing everything, but maybe not actively do everything, but they're storing everything in their brains. I think it's out of fear. I think a lot of women started doing everything out of fear. Well, I think there's a few different levels to that, right? When you're with a partner who it can't stand in his masculine or be feminine at all ever, because we have both, right? And you really are actually in a relationship by yourself, then you've got to really figure out how to take care of yourself by yourself, right? The other piece is, I mean, historically, a lot of men have killed their wives and their girlfriends. So there's women that were afraid of that because they're in abusive relationships, or even like historically that was happening. And so they decided to, okay, well, I got to take care of everything because nobody else is going to do it. I've got to keep myself safe. There's a few, I also think capitalism is part of that too, because of our desperation for more. You know, the entire societal structure right now is being affected by capitalism and this desire to just constantly have more than we did before. And so women jumped on that bandwagon. I mean, I think it's a very layered idea about how it is we find ourselves working full time, raising kids, managing the households, doing the volunteering, taking care of the extracurricular activities. It's fascinating. And I don't know if there's an easy answer to that one, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we create that shift?
Yeah, this is a good
Where
question. I
we,
think getting in your body is definitely more of a feminine thing if you're going to say that. Being in touch with sensation in your body, absolutely. Hmm. Because most of that is coming from your head, right? That fear and that like push is from your head. It's not your body telling you to do that necessarily.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe there's been lots of different events that happened through the history that have ended up creating us the way we are right now.
Yeah.
Because we always had been in control. We were an asset or a liability, with being a dowry, sold like marriages. And so like through history, we weren't treated as equals.
That's right.
So now I think the word equality has been blurred because it's not meant to be, we are equal in all aspects as men, that now we need to do everything that men do. It's equality in a sense of values, opportunities, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of men out there going, well, pay for half of your meal on a date because you can, you wanted equal rights. So now that's not what I want out of a man. No. I still want to be nurtured. I still want to feel like he will take care of me. Because if you're not going to take care of me, and it doesn't have to be financially, it's just that push.
But that would be nice, Bella.
Yeah. 100%. Right?
Because you're doing so much work in the background that goes totally unnoticed and it's not valued, right?
Yeah.
And even that whole thing about you can pay for half the meal. I saw something online which really made sense to me. Like, how long do women take to get ready for a date?
Yeah.
Like hours, right? Like you might take a week. You might go shopping. You might spend money on a new outfit. How long do we think guys take to get ready for a date?
Yeah. I mean, I know a few guys that take longer, but you know what I mean?
Why would we want to go out for a date after spending all that time getting ready? And also oftentimes we do a lot of the emotional work in the date, asking questions or listening to a lot of men talk about themselves the entire time.
Yeah.
Why would we want to pay for half of the meal?
Yeah.
I'm not saying I can't. I can.
Yeah.
But I don't want to.
Yeah.
And I probably will have friends of mine who'll watch this podcast and be like, what were you talking about on there, Shyloe? What do you mean you don't want to pay for half of the... I don't. I literally don't. I showed up. I did a lot of work to show up. I'm not paying for half of this meal.
No, it's true. And I feel a lot of women feel the same way. Where are the men? The question is buzzing around it. Where are the men who give us a sense of you'll take care of us and then we can take care of you, right? Because like you said, we don't get paid for the, I always say, emotional baggage that comes with raising children because we do carry a lot more of that. We don't get paid for the extra cleaning, cooking, shopping, driving here, driving there, taking time off work if we are working. Because statistically, if the couples are working, who is going to stay home with the child, right? It's not going to be the man. Statistically, I'm not saying no man ever has stayed.
No, I hear that.
But, it's in that conversation. I think we're having the wrong conversations. And that's why women are holding on to so much, not being able to release.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of value, right? Like the things that we do need to be valued. And for years, they really weren't. There was a time period possibly where women in the 50s or 40s were valued for being stay-at-home moms and all the work they did. But that also came with a big burden, right? Because they had no rights. They couldn't buy property. They couldn't have a job after they had kids. Some women really need to work. They don't want to be home with their kids. It actually makes them crazy. But they weren't allowed to do that. My grandmother's a perfect example. She worked full-time at the Hudson Bay Company before she had kids. She got pregnant. She had to quit. I don't think my grandma really wanted to be at home raising kids because she fell into a depression probably that she never got out of. Right? So it's like I think the thing is even like a bigger, like a societal, like a cultural, like a worldwide thing where women are not valued, right? And if you have something in your life that doesn't hold value, then you're not really going to appreciate it. And so there's nothing that we can do as women other than I read about I don't know if it was 100 years ago, women went on strike for some reason, or what if it was in the early there was somewhere on the planet women went on strike. They refused to sleep with their men or something, like a mass amount of it's to invoke change. Anyway, but that's the thing, and I think it also goes back to the idea of the patriarchy, masculinity, femininity, and honoring both, because both are so important. But historically, the feminine has not been valued. It's been kind of possessed, I guess, would be the word.
Yeah. So do you think we can carry past traumas from past life, like from your
100%.
parents?
100%. Yeah.
Right. So doing this type of work, do you move that through?
Like generational trauma, they have now proved in scientific research that trauma can come through DNA. So you can carry generational trauma from your parents, and that can be infecting your everyday living without you really knowing. That's another reason why it's really important not just to do talk therapy, but to find therapists who can work with your bodies, therapists who can work with past lives, therapists who can work with there's I don't know if it's internal family systems or family constellation work, where they can work with relationship with your parents and all this stuff, your grandparents.
Do you think, I'm going to be a little bit of a maybe devil's advocate, I don't know.
Sure.
Generational trauma. Let's say you had two families coming from the same background, the same experiences. One family talks about this trauma all the time. And one family decides that they're not going to live into that, and they're just going to create a different life. Does the body still carry that trauma? Or is it trauma that has been instilled into you from childhood?
These are very good questions. It's almost the question like if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there, can you hear it fall? I can't say I know for sure. I know the science they did around it would say yes, because the science they did was with mice, actually, not humans. And mice were exposed to a certain smell during trauma in previous lives, and then children and grandchildren were scared of that smell. I think that's how the science goes. So the mice weren't telling their kids about the trauma, right? It just was in their DNA. I guess the other thing you have to think about is the family who's reiterating trauma all the time. Is that family in a lower socioeconomic bracket? Are they a minority? What other social influences would be on them that they'd want to be talking about this trauma all the time? So they might have other things going on. But the question is good because oftentimes the more you talk about trauma, the more you continue to live the trauma. That's why, the whole topic of our podcast today around talk therapy. That's why trying to find a different modality. There's other modalities. They're like EMDR, that eye movement, desensitization, reprocessing. That works with the body as well and gets you out of talk therapy. There's psychedelics, like you talked about using mushrooms. There's LSD, ayahuasca, which is a psychoactive or something. There's ibogaine, I think. But so there's lots of different ways to get out of that loop.
Yeah.
But that really is a loop. And you're right. You can have trauma in the generations, but families who keep talking about it could possibly perpetuate it more.
Yeah, I do believe we do pass on certain things. When my husband and I were in therapy, we had individual counselors and we did couples counseling. At one point, I felt like we're just doing the loop, like you said at the beginning. It's just in a loop. At some point, you're just like, okay, well, when are we going to be done talking? What next steps do we need to take? I don't want to go back there because going back there doesn't feel good. I want to feel good.
Yeah.
I want to move past this. I want to move on. So it's not helping in that aspect. What else can we do? Right. So that's when we went and we explored a little bit with different things.
Yeah.
But yeah, all in all, just talking about it creates that loop. Just And the stories sometimes get bigger and skewed because you start adding things, because you start getting worked up, and it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. And sometimes when you listen to some people, when they told you a story a year ago, and if they continuously talk about it, what it was at the beginning of the year to what it was at the end of the year is 10 times bigger. Right? So I do like that, getting into your body. Of course, talking is important. You need to find the root cause of what is happening. Communication is key. We can't just throw things under the rug. But at some point, what do you want in life? That's the question we always ask with my husband. Are we in it to win it, or are we working against each other? Instead of focusing on the things we don't have, we focus on what it is that we want. And that it puts you in a completely different state of mind, different mood, vibration, and then you start attracting those things into your realm versus constantly being stuck in the past.
Talk therapy can be a great entry point for a lot of people, and for some people it really works, CBT and DBT. But for someone like myself who is neurodivergent, who had a lot of childhood trauma, I understood in my head quite a bit about how my thoughts affected my behavior or my feelings. As a neurodivergent person, we spend a lot of time thinking about those things, making connections. We're always looking for patterns between like what our thoughts are doing, how things are happening. This is where getting into your body and feeling more can help you find answers in a different way. Because neurodivergent people, especially people with autism, have so much sensory input all the time that talk therapy doesn't always take that into consideration. And so it's really important to work with neurodivergent people and sort out what's happening in their system, what sensory stuff's going on, to find, solutions and tools and things that can help them to really meet success.
I think not just neurodivergent. I say right now I'm sensory overload when I'm in big crowds. I used to love big cities, big crowds. I still do in small doses, but I can't be in those crowds anymore because I get overwhelmed. I get anxiety. So now I just change my lifestyle and I remove myself and I don't do those things as often, let's say. And that's okay. Right? Like, as we're changing, we need to allow ourselves to say, okay, this is the season in my life I'm in. This is what's not working anymore. Let's have a conversation with our partner or ourselves or our children saying, this is no longer working for me because this is where I'm at. So you need to pick up the pieces, or we're not going to do this anymore. And we'll just find other ways to shift into the new season of our lives as we're moving along, right? Because we can't be stuck in the same spot.
We're always evolving.
Yes. Yeah. So if someone listening right now feels completely disconnected from their physical body and overwhelmed by their mind, what is the very first physical step they should take today to ground themselves?
That's a great question, because that was me. What I did was I started noticing what was happening right in the moment. So I'd be sweeping the floor and I'd narrate it to myself. I'd be like, I'm sweeping the floor right now. I'm using a broom on the floor. The broom's red. I'm in my kitchen. I used all of my ability or capacity of attention to bring myself into the present moment. And that began like my relief from all of that.
Okay. So when I'm having a conflict with my children or my husband, I should pause and start naming, okay, this is what's happening, because then makes sense, because then you're not allowing your system to go back to, because this feels, let's say this feels like something happened 10 years ago.
Right.
And now
it's like hitting your nervous system. Yeah, it's activating your nervous system, ramping everything up. Yeah. So it's like, this is happening and this happened here, and now you're mushroom clouding. So I always say, it's like, here comes the mushroom cloud. Flipping your lid. Yeah.
press the button. Don't press the button. Keep the mushroom cloud. Get present. Get into your body and start noticing the sensations.
In that moment, as you're as the nervous system's ramping up, you don't feel safe. That's why it's happening, right? That's the reaction, is all of a sudden you've triggered your sympathetic nervous system. You got your fight, flight, fawn, freeze coming on board. Okay. So you have to find a way in that moment to feel safe again, to diffuse that. And one of the ways to do that is really just paying attention, getting present, notice what's happening physically in that moment.
Okay. So where can people find you?
People can find me at radicalwondering.ca. You can also find me just on Facebook at Shyloe Fayad, and LinkedIn, Radical Wondering. So that's my business name, is Radical Wondering. And if people feel particularly inspired to try working with me, they can access a link on my booking page on my website. And I've set up a little promo just for your audience. And they can access 3 sessions for about 25% off. And the code they have to use is no sugar, all capital letters, 2026. So again, that's no sugar, 2026. And it says right on there, don't sugarcoat it, 3-session promo or something.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Shyloe, for joining us today. Thank you for your insights and sharing your work with us. Until next time.
Sounds great, Bella. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained valuable insights to elevate your life and business.
If you found value in our conversation, spread the love. Share this episode with family and friends, and let's grow this supportive community together.
And don't forget to like and follow us so we can reach more amazing people just like you.
Until next time, remember, let's not sugarcoat it. Keep it real, raw, and unfiltered.